Welcome, friends, as we continue integrating the three techniques: the technique of indifference, the technique of light, and the technique of the presence. Indifference brings us the power of transmission in the spirit of striving for solemnity. Solemnity is, Master Moya says, a beginning in the march forward to resoluteness, the highest tension. It leads to the fieriest waves of attainment. It is a means of fortification. Understand the solemnity of love, Master Moya says, which unites the silver thread with the citadel of the highest heart.
In observing the history of humanity's development, entire periods of growth in consciousness can be seen. Let us not conceal that precisely now a book of discoveries and of the light of daring is being opened before humanity. This ripened fruit of the thorny travail of the community is ready to burst with seed. Can one split this fruit with a sword, or crush it through fright, or through cringing cowardice, or usurp it through treacherous cunning? No, only unity of consciousness and the gaining of knowledge will bestow on humanity the gift of a new race. The impetus toward this will be afforded not by cosmic phenomena, but by the current of thought. Agni Yoga, Sloka 45. Meditation releases you from the prisons of this or that opinion, from this or that background, education, tradition, habit, and superstition, from propaganda, politics, and other impressions, and makes you see things clearly in the new light of your mind, which you discover through your meditation. The form of meditation is like a shining star. The quality is striving. The purpose is to learn how to think and discover your own light. The cause is the aspiration of your soul to identify with the soul of the universe.
Ben, you offered this to us. Would you give us a little sense of the author?
A spiritual writer who I think wrote about 100 books and synthesized the ageless wisdom with his own artistic sense. I wrote a little something this morning about the ripening fruit. Joyous anticipation, spiritual ripening, the moment before we know the desire of all nations is coming. We work, we wait with serenity, fierce solemnity, certainty, for the fulfillment is inevitable, opening the hearts of everyone to the coming one. The Father's face turns toward the dream, already on its way to the awakening. At the coming of the dawn, we look to the horizon.
Thank you, Ben.
Sounding as the group that has formed and is forming, becoming the channel for the dissipation of group glamour, using the sign of the cross of divinity. We sound the protective formula as one with the group. As the soul we work in light, touch the forehead. And darkness cannot touch us, the center of the chest. We take our stand within the light, left eye, manas. We work, and from that point we never move, right eye, buddhi. Entering into incarnation, we emerge through the darkness to develop personality, to align, to integrate, and fuse with the soul. It must never be forgotten that all egos work in group formation and under the direct control of those thinkers who embody the divine logoic thought. The work every aspirant therefore seeks to do is to bring the brain consciousness in line with that thought, which reaches him via his own soul consciousness. And in the consummation of this, the divine plan is gradually worked out into manifestation on the physical plane. What is the ray of the ego or soul? And what is the ray of the etheric physical body, the brain?
How are we bringing those into alignment as we work together in group?
As each son of God brings the active mind stuff for which he is responsible into such a condition that it becomes responsive to divine thought, then will the plan of the ages be carried to a conclusion. How does the higher mind develop to include the gifts, the higher qualities of the soul, and then integrate soul and personality for eventual fusion?
Master Dwal Kul gives us the constitution of man, and we've used a similar graphic over time together so that we can truly look and envision in our own way this higher mental plane. And we all move through this point, this midway point, the mental unit, the bridge to the higher mental plane, discrimination. The most interesting thing, I think, for us to really focus on in group is that that mental unit we are building together resonates with 4 and 5. We think of 5 as the 5th kingdom, the soul, and 4 as the 4th kingdom, humanity. And really hold that consciousness of the greater wholes, the greater expansions, as we utilize discrimination. We're told in the teachings on the technique of the presence that we utilize the knowledge petals of the egoic lotus in bringing the ideas down into our consciousness and group consciousness. The first is knowledge, knowledge. The second, knowledge, love. The third, knowledge, sacrifice. The fourth, love, knowledge. And the 7th, sacrifice, knowledge. These are the petals that we are developing ourselves and as groups. In esoteric psychology, Master Dwalkul says, achieve knowledge through discriminating choice. So in our time together, in the next couple of sessions, we're going to explore freedom, because it comes to our particular planetary being through the system from Sirius, where the law of freedom is generated into and through, to our system and our planet as freedom of choice.
The work of the aspirant to union is to swing the mind stuff gradually and increasingly under the higher impulse and away from the lower vibration until the responsiveness to the higher becomes a stable condition and the vibratory activity of the lower man fades and dies out. How do we realize this as a group?
First, through awareness of our own being and aura and the spheres that we bring into relationship with the soul. As the soul develops, there is a greater recognition, and awareness grows within group to newer recognitions, and eventually into a shared realization. And we gradually move into, through the initiatory process, the stage of recognition of the far greater, the One. And we utilize the mantra of unification in our groups to confirm the souls of all are one, and we are one with them, as our shared realization that leads to revelation, eventually using the technique of the presence as one method.
We move from the bondage of the lower bodies. First, essential relation, physical and etheric bodies through discrimination and detachment. Second, essential relation, astral, emotional, and etheric physical through dispassion and detachment. Third, essential relation, brain and mind through discernment and detachment. The Light of the Soul, Sutra 26, says the state of bondage is overcome through perfectly maintained discrimination. For the master, choice is based on knowledge and not on desire, to achieve freedom from the 7 planetary centers. Freedom for us. Rule 7, the dual forces on the plane, whereon the vital power must be sought, are seen. The 2 paths face the solar angel. The poles vibrate. A choice confronts the one who mediates, the battleground of the astral plane. The 2 paths. A particular astrological influence is the instrument of choice in choosing the way of travel on the physical plane, and has, besides, a potency all its own, whereby it attracts and develops its own sign language, so a vital power is felt in the aspirant. This eventually brings the 3rd eye into activity. The work to be done. The disciple, therefore, has several things at which to aim. A sensitive response to the master's vibration, a practical purity of life, a purity not merely theoretical, a freedom from care. Here, bear in mind that care is based on the personal and is the result of lack of dispassion and a too ready response to the vibrations of the lower worlds. The dual forces of the plane, whereon the vital power must be sought, are seen. The 2 paths face the solar angel. The poles vibrate. A choice confronts the one who meditates.
In solving such problems, certain broad discriminations can precede the more subtle, and when these decisions have been made, the more subtle can then take their place. The choice between selfish and unselfish action is the most obvious one to follow upon the choice between right and wrong, and is easily settled by the honest soul. A choice which involves discrimination between individual benefit and group responsibility rapidly eliminates other factors and is easy to the man who shoulders his just responsibility. Note the use of the words just responsibility. We are considering the normal, sane man and not the overconscientious, morbid fanatic. There follows next the distinction between the expedient, involving factors of the physical plane relations of business and of finance, leading up to a consideration of the highest good for all parties concerned. But having, through this triple eliminative process, arriving at a certain position, cases arise where choice still remains, in which neither common sense nor logical discerning reason seem to help. The desire is only to do the right thing. The intent is to act in the highest possible way and to take that line of action which will produce the best good of the group, apart from personal considerations altogether. Yet light upon the path which must be trodden is not seen. The door which should be entered is unrecognized, and the man remains in the state of constant indecision. What then must be done? One of two things.
First, the aspirant can follow his inclination and choose that line of action out of the residue of possible lines which seems to him the wisest and the best. This involves belief in the working of the law of karma, and also a demonstration of that firm decisiveness which is the best way in which his personality can learn to abide by the decisions of his own soul. It involves also the ability to go forward upon the grounds of the decision made, and so to abide by the results without forebodings or regrets. Secondly, he can wait, resting back upon an inner sense of direction, knowing that in due time he will ascertain, through the closing of all doors but one, which is the way he should go. For there is only one open door through which such a man can go. Intuition is needed for its recognition. In the first case, mistakes may be made, and the man thereby learns and is enriched. In the second case, mistakes are impossible, and only right action can be taken.
It is obvious, therefore, that all resolves itself into an understanding of one's place upon the ladder of evolution. Only the highly advanced man can know the times and seasons and can adequately discern the subtle distinction between a psychic inclination and the intuition. In considering these two ways of ultimate decision, let not the man who should use his common sense and take a line of action based upon the use of the concrete mind practice the higher method of waiting for a door to open. He is expecting too much in the place of where he is. He has to learn through right decision and right use of the mind to solve his problems. Through this method, he will grow, for the roots of intuitive knowledge are laid deep within the soul, and the soul, therefore, must be contacted before the intuition can work. One hint only can here be given. The intuition ever concerns itself with group activity and not with petty personal affairs. If you are still a man centered in the personality, recognize it, and with the equipment available, govern your actions. If you know yourself to be functioning as a soul and are lost in the interest of others, untrammeled by selfish desire, then your just obligation will be met, your responsibilities shouldered, your group work carried forward, and the way will unfold before you, whilst you do the next thing and fulfill the next duty. Out of duty perfectly performed will emerge those larger duties, which we call world work. Out of the carrying of family responsibilities will come that strengthening of our shoulders, which will enable us to carry those of the larger group. What then is the criterion?
Seek in the affairs of every day to cultivate a consciousness of the real and a negation of the unreal, and carry into all relationships and into all affairs. Accustom oneself through persistent, unbroken practice to distinguish between the self and the not self, and to occupy oneself with the affairs of spirit, and not with those of the great Maya or world of forms. This distinction is at first theoretical, then intellectual, using the mind, but later assumes more reality and enters into the happenings of the emotional and physical world. For the high-grade aspirant, let me repeat, the choice of actions depends upon the sound use of the lower mind, the employment of a sane common sense, and the forgetfulness of selfish comfort and personal ambition. This leads to the fulfillment of duty. For the disciple, there will be the automatic and necessary carrying forward of all of the above, plus the use of the intuition, which will reveal the moment when wider group responsibilities can be justly shouldered and carried simultaneously with those of the smaller group. Ponder on this. The intuition reveals not the way of ambition, the intuition reveals not the way ambitions can be fed, nor the manner in which desire or selfish advancement can be gratified.
Freedom of will is a prerogative of man, but without harmony with the higher forces, it becomes a misfortune. Finally, the following of this method eventuates in the entrance of the aspirant into an entirely new dimension and the identification with a life and a world of being disassociated from the three worlds of human endeavor. When this is so, the new environment becomes familiar, so that one knows not only the form, but the subjective reality which produces or causes the existence of the forms. Then passing on to the cultivation of the next great quality, which is dispassion or desirelessness. One may be able to distinguish between the real and the true, between the substance and the life which animates it, and yet desire or go out towards the form existence. This too must be overcome before perfect liberation, emancipation, or freedom is attained.
Freedom is an essentially spiritual attribute underlying the entire evolutionary process. This should always be remembered as a strengthening and conditioning reality by all men and women everywhere. Freedom as a spiritual attribute has survived eons of opposition from the principle of enslaving selfishness and is largely responsible at this time for the struggle in which we are all participating. On the side of soul expression, which is governed by detachment, the following phrases and sentences will give an idea of the progress and intent. And this is, in a way, a step-by-step summary of what we have just considered. 1. The stage of spiritualization and of dematerialization. The soul functions with the purpose of liberation before it, and not of further physical plane experience. 2. The relinquishment of form life. 3. The period wherein satiety is experienced. The desires have been so dominant and so often satisfied that they no longer attract. 4. The process and detail of liberation from bodies and forms. A body or bodies, a sheath or sheaths, a vehicle or vehicles, a form or forms. Emergence into light, a symbolic way of expressing the reverse of immersion in darkness. The path of return, motivated by the wish to appropriate nothing for the separated self, the beginning of group consciousness and of group work. Selflessness, the major characteristic of the soul or higher self. And finally, 8. Freedom from the desire to possess, freedom from acquisitiveness, and therefore the state of desirelessness, the establishing of the sense of reality as the ruling principle of the life. We endeavor to understand and embody the soul quality of humility, sacrifice as the joy of the soul, expressing Buddhic awareness, embodying indifference, and to achieve goal fitness as we move through this year, from the year of convocation to actuating the radiance of the soul consciousness into the minds of all, utilizing each cycle of the zodiac this year in order to continuously progress and advance as group. By means of the technique of indifference, Maya is ended, for the control of the purified astral vehicle is consciously and technically brought into activity, producing the freeing of the energies of the etheric body from the control of matter or force substance, and bringing men and women in large numbers onto the probationary path. Where there is divine indifference to the call or pull of matter, then inspiration becomes possible. To use matter with complete impersonality, enabling one to live a life inspired by God. Inspiration is the applied power of transmission. And in our individual service groups, that inspiration, that quality of inspiration, is being developed, expanded, and is radiating out through the group service work. So each of us, in those groups that we join on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, are utilizing this technique of indifference and are ending Maya in relation to the field that the light is being beamed into. And those participating then in the receptivity of that light can become inspired by the power of this group transmission. Each of us are drawn to certain groups in order to facilitate that. This group is focused on bringing thought into the minds of humanity, the higher thoughts, the higher expressions.
Lead us, O Lord, with true indifference, using the power of transmission, from darkness to light, from the unreal to the real, from chaos to beauty, from death to immortality, from the individual to the universal, to achieve freedom from the lower bodies and life on the Buddhic plane. We say, we say in unison, the light is one, and in that light shall we see light. This is the light that turns the darkness into day. Sounding the Om as the group soul on its own plane, sounded forth by the group soul, the realized unity of the souls of all the group members. Sounding the Om as the soul on the mental plane. Sounding the Om as the soul on the astral plane, the soul ready to function as light bearer and distributor of light upon the astral plane. Our aim is to embody spiritual discernment, practice positive harmlessness, and eventually achieve a state of divine indifference as we dispel illusion, dissipate glamours, devitalize Maya in all our relationships. The reflection of true solemnity is luminous, from Herzlocker 525. More radiant than the sun, purer than the snow, subtler than the ether, is the self, the spirit within my heart. I am that self am I. Radiance we are, and power. We stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth, the inner world of meaning and the subtle world of glamour. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. Thus with the light we work and turn the darkness into day. The tension in the world today, particularly in the hierarchy, is such that it will produce another and perhaps ultimate world crisis, or else such a speeding up of the spiritual life of the planet that the coming in of the long-looked-for new age conditions will be amazingly hastened. I would have you consider carefully what I have said here, remembering what I have told you in the past anent points of tension. We radiate the qualities, the virtues of the group as one unified soul consciousness. As we follow the technique of light to dissipate the glamour or group interference with freedom of choice in all its forms, leading to higher spiritual expression by activating the technique of indifference and aligning with the presence. Herzlocker, 85. Freedom is precious as a way of protecting the personality and individualizing the energies attracted. But it is freedom that is the most distorted concept of all. Instead of being suffused with freedom, life is filled with tyranny and slavery, the very features that exclude cooperation and respect for personality. So it is that some people manage to form their existence from an exclusive combination of tyranny and slavery. Of course, people talk repeatedly about freedom, but they are not even sure what its characteristics are. But when they firmly understand the real meaning of freedom, their consciousness will be raised. Intense quests for freedom reveal that the spirit, in its potential, is longing to attain new heights, and nobody has taught it how to handle the treasure of freedom. We enter into a beam of directed, focused light, revealing a greater light and illumining the way to the center of the light, linking mind and soul, lift to focus on the angel of the presence, leading the way to the presence, directing our way. The disciple learns eventually to know the self, to be above everything else, whilst in incarnation, the director of forces. These we direct from the altitude of the divine observer and through the attainment of detachment. Note altitude rather than attitude. These truths are for you only the platitudes of occultism, and yet, if you could but grasp the full significance of detachment and stand serene as the observing director, there would be no more wasted motion, no more mistaken moves, and no more false interpretations, no wandering down the bypaths of daily living, no seeing others through distorted and prejudiced vision, and above all, no more misuse of force. That is our goal. That is the summit of the mountaintop of this worldly experience. We pledge to achieve a point of tension that embodies focused immovable will, unchanged and immovable in all circumstances. We pledge to erase glamour from our lives and all hindrances to true freedom. We orient towards the will of God, Shambhala, the center where the will of God is known. In the center of the will of God we stand. Naught shall deflect our will from God's will. We implement that will by love. We turn towards the field of service. As the triangle divine, we work out that will within the square and serve humanity. We align with hierarchy, the center where the plan of humanity is formulated. The power of the light is focused on the goal. As the recognition of the angel of the presence, the soul on its own plane. As the Buddhic light on the plane of intuition. As the soul vehicle on the mental plane, the egoic lotus and higher mind and brain, uniting the light of the intuition and light of mind that as a unified light under right direction eliminates all that hinders the path to freedom of choice, the law of freedom streaming into our planetary system from Sirius as the highest freedom of choice held within hierarchy. Together, we pledge to align in the purity of will and love and light, transmitted from the presence with the highest degree of indifference that we can attain at this point in time and space. Today, let us meditate on Agni Yoga Heart Sloka 29. To approach us, you need an understanding of full freedom, unobscured striving, freed of all burdens, reveals the true path. Only a heart from which no cunning or corruption can be concealed is able to judge where such freedom begins. But the boundaries of the heart's freedom are subtle ones. What things do people manage to pile up around the subtle web? If the heart resounds to a distant earthquake, if our skin senses the warmth flowing from a hand, even over a considerable distance, then how much more strongly must the heart vibrate in response to human radiations? It is precisely this property that contemporary science fails to note sufficiently. We affirm the fact of the presence, the influence of the angel, the reaction of the intuitives, the process of revelation, and the response of the thinking world. Sensing the presence throughout the universe, we achieve a definite and sustained effort to sense the presence throughout the universe in all forms and in all presentations of truth. It is the effort primarily to see in the light which the angel radiates the point of light behind all phenomenal appearances. This could be expressed in the words, the effort to isolate the germ or seed of divinity which has brought all forms into being. The presence in all, the vibrating response to existence in all presentations of truth. Behind the angel of the presence, dimly sensed, not another duality, but a great identity, a living unity, which, for lack of a better word, we call the presence. Sensing the presence as a vibratory experience. Ascertaining the purpose, what seeking to embody form now. Carrying a world issue or service desire to the triple light of intuition. When we are thus duly recognized as a trustworthy agent of light, we await a hint of a truth that will bring relief. And prepare for the steps of revelation that is attainable for us in the coming unfoldment of time and space. We take a pause for recognition and experience the presence. Let us prepare.
Let us prepare for revelation, a lower interlude, landing in the brain. We relinquish the higher way. We return to the angel and refocus in the soul. We pause for a period or interlude to be impressed by constructive thinking under the influence of the angel. We turn the mind to the formulation of those forms of thought which must embody the revelation. At the stage that your soul has prepared for you to receive. Then again, we pause. The pause preceding presentation.
As we move forward, preparing for the downloading into our brain consciousness, reading softly and deliberately from the slokas given to us by Master Moria. He says we should prepare for the awareness of revelation, that we are capable of attaining in consciousness at our point in evolution, and still firmly aligning the will in the tension that we have established for purpose and plan of the higher forces of light and the Lords of liberation to be experienced in the unfolding events. He says, one should firmly tell people that the new world has come into being. People are not prepared to assume their places in the tasks of creation. It is an error to believe that conquest has any connection with the mission of the new world, whether it is in the conquest of countries or of a special class of people. This belongs with departing ways of thinking. In the process of evolution, one can consider only the ascent of consciousness the ascent of consciousness founded upon freedom of opportunities. Prepare to receive ideas, founded upon freedom of opportunities. Let us imagine the earth crowded with wireless stations. Just a few stations are a very high tension, high voltage. Only these few will be directing the life of the planet. We attune to those few. In just this way, there exist spirits of high voltage, spirits who charged up their accumulators when manifesting in the past, the hierarchy. Their distinguishing feature is a firm awareness that their inner I is indissoluble. And from this consciousness is born the concept of a higher freedom. To the high voltage station is attached a network of smaller stations that receive its continual waves. These are the 7 soul groups on the highest mental plane. That is how a spirit of high voltage nourishes its surroundings. It resembles a solitary, lower voltage pattern that reigns over the entire region. This is the reason people are attracted to such magnets from their childhood. These inlets, these power stations that receive from hierarchy, connected to the broader web of high voltage stations that include the Davic influence from hierarchy. So Moria tells us that amidst the storms, a new raiment will be woven. And let the following period be called the light bearing, and let us shape it accordingly. With courage, let us turn our horses toward the desert haze. The principle of homeless wandering has to be lived through. In 1,000 days, one has to be able to get used to homelessness. Great is the sense of freedom's wings when the sands cover over one's tracks. This is a path that all seekers have walked. We can welcome this stage when the boundaries of countries are being erased. Cooperation can be an adornment for a conscious spirit. What conveys the concept of cooperation is neither coercion nor, still less, competition, but rather an increase in our energies. Those who have understood the hierarchy with their heart also clearly understand what it means to work together. A person who teaches freedom is a manifestation of the hierarchy. Because first of all, it is said to take the shortest path. Gather up your forces and ground yourselves in an understanding of individualization, a rainbow being fortified by each of its rays. An understanding of this individualization of the Antakarana, this rainbow being fortified by each of its rays as we beam on the vibratory magnetism of hierarchy along the Antakarana toward the Christ. The hierarchy only casts out manifest traitors as cosmic litter, Moria says. With everyone else, the hierarchy finds the ray that we transmuted into action. People will ask, how can you refer to a creator whom you don't even know? The answer is, thanks to history and science, we know the great teachers who have created the quality of our consciousness. In acknowledging the influence of our master's ideology, aren't you restricting your freedom? No, the quality of freedom is remarkable. If freedom exists, then there is nothing that can restrict it. The body may be in shackles, but nothing can diminish the consciousness except ugliness. When we touch the heights of freedom, we must protect ourselves from ugliness. If we wish to exalt matter, we need to think wisely about beauty in our downloads from the presence through the angel of the presence. In beauty, the infinite will manifest. In beauty, the teachings of the seekers of spirit are illumined. In beauty, we are not afraid to reveal the truth of freedom. In beauty, we kindle the radiance in every drop of water. In beauty, we transform matter into a rainbow. There is no ugliness that will not be swallowed up in the rays of the rainbow, the Antakarana. The rainbow bridge formed when matter is decomposed. There are no fetters that will not decompose in the freedom of beauty. All glamour, all illusion will be decomposed in the freedom of beauty, says Master Moria. But how can we find words to discuss the universe? How shall we speak about the evolution of forms? How shall we raise the consciousness to a level where it studies the fundamentals? How to advance humanity to a point where it cognizes the world scientifically? Moria says, every cognition is born in beauty. Learn how to think luminously, and nothing terrifying will touch you. Remember, the hierarchy has no prohibitions. Even the best additions to the concept of brotherhood have only lowered it and made it difficult to attain. It has been linked with liberty and equality, but this trinity was conceived in the earthly meaning, that is to say, under conditions in which neither freedom nor equality do exist. The loftiest freedom can be realized in the supermundane world, where laws are understood as a beautiful and immutable reality. There, too, equality of the seed of the Spirit is understood, it being the sole measure of liberality and balance. Usually the earthly statues depicting liberty are furnished with wings or torches, thus reminding us about the higher spheres and conditions. So let us continue now with a pause for any ideas that were stimulated through Master Moria's teachings, and see what can be brought through in the downflow, in solemnity, with beauty, into brain recognition, The revelation and impression is that which is received through the channel of approach. The downflow from the hierarchy and the angel of the presence follows. From the will aspect of the monadic life to that level of consciousness and of energy which we call that of the higher mind. And from the higher mind to the knowledge petals of the egoic lotus. And then from these vortices of force, the knowledge petals of the egoic lotus, to the lower or concrete mind, in which the average intelligent individual works, and to our groups, to the throat center, and from thence immediately to the sacral center, the center of physical plane creation or reproduction. From there, raised again to the throat center, where the creative physical urge is transmuted into artistic, literary, creative expression in some form or another. And then, as we enter into our group mind, we raise it again into the power to create groups and organizations and contribute to groups and organizations, which will express some idea or some thought which emanates from the mind of God, Sanat Kumara, into the Ajna center of Sanat Kumara, the new group of world servers, or developing one world serving group. These ideas demanding immediate precipitation upon earth. From that highest point, the knowledge petals of the egoic lotus, and the higher mind, discrimination activated to the throat center, to the sacral center, back to the throat center, knowledge, 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 love, knowledge, sacrifice, love, knowledge, sacrifice, knowledge, opening within the throat center of each group in which we serve. Where we achieve knowledge through discriminating choice.
Succumbing of the revelation to illusion. The succumbing of the revelation to the prevailing illusion, its descent into the world of glamour, and its subsequent disappearance as a revelation and its emergence as a doctrine. But in the meantime, humanity has been helped and led forward. The intuitives continue to work, and the inflow of that which is to be revealed never ceases. Freedom is the adornment of wisdom, but profligacy Profligacy is the horns of ignorance. Let the forces of light bring illumination to humanity. Let the spirit of peace be spread abroad. May people of goodwill everywhere meet in a spirit of cooperation. May forgiveness on the part of all be the keynote at this time. Let power attend the efforts of the great ones. So let it be, and help us to do our part. Free will is a solemn bidding to a wayfarer. Before reaching the far-off paths, it is essential to give him the precious gift of free will. Each one may act according to his ability. He will not be constrained. But the wise one will realize what a responsibility he bears for the use of the treasure of free will. It is as if a purse full of gold were given him. It can be spent at his discretion, but an account would have to be rendered. And the Brotherhood teaches not to spend the entrusted treasure without usefulness. Brotherhood Sloka 570. And Thomas Merton said, though you don't fully understand why you are doing this, trust the instinct that says you can't not do it, lest you pay a soul price down the road.
Thank you for your service. We meet again for ideas, ideals, and illusion, where we will have a deeper consideration of the thoughts that come into your consciousness as you ponder over the next couple of weeks. In this light of Gemini, this light of interplay, which is a light that is a planetary light. It's coming into our planetary being. And so it holds more for humanity than it may for us as individuals. But it should guide us in the selection, in our choices that we make. Thank you all for attending, for voicing, and also for listening as we move forward together. And gratitude to the sources that guide us. Freedom of will abides in all, and the planet itself is in the power of the human spirit. These slokas will be part of our consideration as we move forward together in the energies of Gemini. In the rays in the initiations, Master Dwalkul says, right choice depends upon right understanding, right perception, right willingness, and right vision or revelation. Consider where you are in your own progress, the ordinary wheel or the reversed wheel. For the spokes of a wheel rotate at a certain speed. And the surrounding atmosphere indicates a degree of tension. If you'd like to comment on these in the interim, the 10 days, 2 weeks, send your comments and your thoughts so that we may include those and any teachings that you've come upon that spark a higher thought in your experience. During this time when the light illumined at the Gemini festival is planetary light, not the light in the head or the soul light that is perceived by the personality. It is awareness of the light of the ashram and the hierarchy.